When the term heritage is looked for, we come across many idioms associated to it that hold significant and relevant power in understanding its meaning. Heritage for itself suggests that it is an inheritance that has been handed down by past generations, something that must in turn be passed on to future generations, either intact or with improvements. In its timeline towards finding itself proper definitions and focus, the term heritage was redefined and broadened by UNESCO to include both tangible and intangible heritage, while acknowledging the interdependence of the two. Tangible heritage refers to the physical artifacts produced, maintained, and transmitted from generation to generation through the history of a society. It includes buildings, historic places, and monuments, which are considered worthy of preservation for the future. Those objects are significant to the archaeology, architecture, science, or technology of a specific culture. All remains and objects and any other traces of humankind from the past times are considered elements of the archaeological heritage. It constitutes an outstanding instrument for better knowledge of the past and the cultural diversity that emerged in history within any given territory. Buildings define and give character to spaces, both urban and rural, and play a role in defining and accenting the cultural landscapes in which we live. The built environment is a reflection of the society and its rituals over time. Intangible heritage defines itself by the attributes of being traditional, contemporary, and occurring at the same time, being inclusive, representative, and community-based. Intangible heritage indicates the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, and skills that are transmitted through traditions, performing arts, social practices, rituals, festive events, knowledge, and practices concerning nature and the universe. The combination of heritage and development only became common at the end of the 1990s. Before this, the preservation of heritage was seen as a luxury compared with issues such as hunger and poverty. Subsequently, many heritage assets were destroyed in the name of development. Development with the aim of short-term profitability had to be challenged. The Rio Summit in 1992 marked a turning point, and the use of the term sustainable development from the Brundtland Commission's report, Our Common Future, helped to trigger the change needed. A mindshift took place from short-term oriented development to the realization that the safeguarding of heritage could contribute to long-term development and assist in combating poverty. Heritage can contribute to development when it serves the interests of the population. Cultural identity, consensus, apprenticeship, and a long-term perspective are all needed in cultural heritage conservation. Banderin explains that education of all involved, in particular those most affected by the process, is essential. Conservation of monuments and open spaces to restore cultural, historic, and spiritual significance by making them viable in a contemporary milieu. This is evident in the Roux area, where industrial heritage has been conserved and is accessible by the public. The potential that heritage can bring to development should be on condition that it serves the community or population interest. The Columba Museum is a contemporary religious exhibition which was built on Roman ruins. A long-term perspective is needed to give meaning to cultural identity and to give pride. It should be integrated with community lifestyle and not just tourism. Tourism can be seen as a marketability manifesto of cultural heritage, which is giving importance to disposable capital of local population. This capital can be commodified through raw material, fauna and flora, countryside, and cultural phenomenon. Heritage and economic development can be merged through an image of the past that has the opportunity to play a vital role in urban planning. New models should be formulated to conserve cultural identity. Development should minimize two key risks: the depletion of natural resources and the destruction of tangible and intangible heritage, and should also attempt to prevent the deterioration of economic situations within communities. Traditional coping strategies can be accessible through interventions which address land and basic infrastructure use for the urban poor. If heritage structures are reused on an innovative basis, especially in high-density urban areas, it can enable heritage buildings and sites to be conserved and utilized at the same time. A systematic destruction of buildings or building traditions has historically been a means of attempting to altogether erase the memories of a community and its presence from a specific location. The Taliban, whose interpretation of Sunni Islam prohibits the representation of animate beings, destroyed the standing Buddha at the Buddhas of Bamiyan site in Afghanistan. A movement aimed at removing the controversial Rhodes statue at the University of Cape Town was seen as an attempt at decolonization. Although some parts of history are unsavory and not representative of all groups, it nevertheless remains an aspect of another group's heritage. Operation Murambatsvina was executed by the Zimbabwean government. It was a crackdown on illegal housing and commercial activities. Identified areas were forcibly cleared, leading to an estimated 700,000 people being displaced. This is an example of urbanicide, violence against the city, destroying its heritage. Despite the differentiation between tangible and intangible heritage, the interdependency between the two is clear. Material or tangible heritage reaches its full significance when it refers to the knowledge and values that constitute its essence and give meaning to its production.